The Athletic has just reported that Ange Postecoglou's future at Tottenham beyond this season is in serious doubt, and Spurs are lining up Andoni Iraola to replace Ange Postecoglou, and Marco Silva and Thomas Frank are also being considered. Welcome back. My name is Chris Cowlin, and this is another episode of Tottenham News, where I'll be going through all of the latest Spurs news, rumours and reports. Please do hit that subscribe button, like, share and comment below. And if you're listening to this on an audio platform, please do hit the follow button and leave a review if you can. I'm going to start with a report today from The Athletic, and they are stating that Tottenham make Bournemouth boss Andoni Iraola top target if they move on from Ange Postecoglou. In the report, it states that Tottenham Hotspur have made Bournemouth's Andoni Iraola their top target to take over as head coach should they decide to part company with Ange Postecoglou. Postecoglou's position at Spurs has been the subject of intense scrutiny, with the club 14th in the Premier League table, having lost more than half of their games so far this season, 15 out of 29. The report then goes on to say that Spurs are still focused on finishing the season strongly, especially with a Europa League quarter-final against Frankfurt next month. But regardless of what happens over the next 2 months, there are question marks over Postecoglou's long-term future. The 59-year-old will still have 1 year left on his Spurs contract this summer, with the option of a fourth year, but his future is in serious doubt beyond this season. The Athletic then go on to state that Iraola, 42, has been hugely impressive since he was appointed by Bournemouth in the summer of 2023. His team are 10 points ahead of Tottenham in the Premier League. They beat Spurs 1-0 in December and had the better of a 2-2 draw at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier this month. The Athletic have also reported that Andoni Iraola has 1 year left on his contract that he signed at the start of this season, and if Tottenham want to appoint him, they will have to pay a £10 million release clause. Although this is unlikely to be a barrier for Spurs, ultimately the ball will be in Iraola's court, although the situation may also be connected to which other big jobs are available this coming summer, not least whether they might be a vacancy at Real Madrid. Right now, there is no clarity about what Andoni Iraola will decide. The Athletic have also stated while Iraola would be the leading candidate for a Spurs vacancy this coming summer, he is not the only potential option, as Fulham's Marco Silva and Brentford's Thomas Frank are also under consideration. Both have taken their teams into the Premier League and established them there in recent years. Fulham are 8th in the table, 11 points ahead of Spurs, and in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, Brentford are 11th, 7 points ahead of Postecoglou's side. The Athletic have also stated that Marco Silva is the second likeliest for the role behind Andoni Iraola. The 47-year-old was highly rated during Tottenham's 2023 managerial search, reaching the final three, only for the job to go to Postecoglou instead. Marco Silva has made Fulham a consistent top half side during his 4 years there, and is aiming to win their first ever major trophy in the FA Cup. And lastly, The Athletic have stated that Marco Silva also has 1 year left at Craven Cottage. The deal initially contained a release clause of in excess of £10 million, so he would not come cheap, but Fulham are confident of keeping hold of their best manager of the modern era. Frank held talks with Aston Villa about becoming their head coach in October 2022, when Tottenham's technical director Johan Langer was Villa's sporting director, but they then ultimately opted for Emery. The Dane has won many admirers for helping Brentford punch above their weight since promotion to the top flight back in 2021, despite having one of the lowest budgets in the division. Now, my thoughts on this, I'm not at all surprised, to be honest. Ange Postecoglou's future at Tottenham beyond this season is in serious doubt. Now, of course, we are out of both domestic cups, the FA Cup, the League Cup, very disappointing. It is very disappointing to see the Premier League table, Spurs sitting 14th, and we just seem to be a million miles away from a European place in terms of league position finish. But we do have our last chance of silverware, our last chance of glory this season. We can turn this dismal season into a good one if we won the Europa League. Now, that is a big if, I know. Frankfurt up next in the quarterfinals. It's going to be a hard game in the semi-finals and the final if Spurs get there, but you never ever know in football. Am I surprised about these reports from The Athletic about Ange Postecoglou's future? Absolutely not. I've said many times on these episodes, being 14th in the Premier League table is simply not good enough. I get what Ange Postecoglou is trying to do, but when you do look at some of the games where we were virtually full strength or at full strength, we weren't that great. Leicester at home, Ipswich at home, to name two. And I just feel that we need to do things differently as a football club. I've said this many, many times. I feel like this is a bit like rinse and repeat. Every 18 months, every 2 years, we are replacing a manager. How many times I feel like a broken record saying the same old thing? Since Pochettino left in 2019, Postecoglou is the 7th different manager, to be in the dugout for Spurs. And we are going through managers like there is no tomorrow. It's taken us longer and longer to find managers. We then bring the managers in, and then, of course, we are at this stage yet again. I know there are a lot of Spurs fans that want Postecoglou gone now, or they even want him gone if we won the Europa League. I feel like I could talk at length for hours about this situation. It isn't a quick, yes, I want him in, yes, I want him out. There is a lot to go through, to get valid points across for the pros and the cons. But ultimately, as I've said before, I feel like we need to do things differently as a football club. If you're going to bring a manager in, you need to trust the process, you need to trust that manager, and ultimately you need to give him the right tools that he wants and needs to play their system. The only thing that does worry me about changing a manager again in the summer is certain players may have gone out the door this summer and they may end up staying. There may have been certain decent players to come in the door, now they're not going to come in the door. I said on a previous episode about if we got Champions League football, the quality of the player could be so much better coming in. But of course, Spurs have got to be willing to, spend a serious amount of money on really challenging for the Premier League title, or indeed, if you're in the Champions League, you need to go big. You need to have a really, really strong squad to go far in that competition. It's not just about competing, just by wanting to be a part of the Champions League. You want to go in the Champions League believing that you can win it. You don't just want to be one of the numbers, making up the numbers. You want to be, really, really challenging, like you can win the thing. Exactly like the Premier League. I feel like that every single year. I want to see Spurs show the intent to go and win a trophy, a major trophy. Pochettino always spoke about, wanting the big prizes. When Postecoglou came in the door, he said, not interested in 5th, not interested in 4th, 3rd or 2nd. I want to be number 1. We haven't heard that from Postecoglou for some time. So what has changed? I just want to see the board do things differently. I want to see the intent there. I want to see the ambition, and I want to see the direction. And it saddens me because I feel like I've said these same things, under multiple different managers. I was always a big fan of Antonio Conte. I called him the magician, actually, in his first season when he got us top 4, because with what he had there, of course, I know we had Harry Kane, who always seemed to get us out of trouble, always got a goal, always got the win for Spurs in the most difficult times. But some of the players that were given to previous managers, I don't think were good enough. I think that Postecoglou wants to play a certain system and he wants to play a certain way, and I don't believe that he has the right quality players to play in that system. I know that I could probably argue or have a debate with many Spurs fans who are not Postecoglou fans. I know there are a lot of people that want Postecoglou gone. I do see a lot of good in Postecoglou, but then I do see flaws as well. Are you going to give a manager time? Are you going to give him patience? Are you going to give him more money to spend? I know there are a lot of people who are heavily doubting what Postecoglou has done or is doing right now. Will that change slightly if we won the Europa League with some people? I think it might. I think that some people will stay, with their opinions and they won't budge. But it can be a successful season. It can be. We do have that chance. Of course, the players have to be putting in everything. What does slightly worry me a little bit is the fact that when Jed Spence did the interview with Rio Ferdinand on Rio's podcast, he was asked the question, who are the leaders? And he just couldn't answer. Whereas, a footballer, when you ask them who are the leaders in the dressing room, the player should go bang, 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 bang. Should be able to reel those names off very, very quickly. And Jed Spence was almost lost for words. He didn't know what to say or who to say, which I find a little bit baffling and worrying. There should be a number of leaders in that dressing room. And if there isn't leaders, make yourself one. Make yourself a leader and be heard and take the lead. In situations. The Daily Mail stated that Spurs are one of 14 Premier League clubs who have inquired about Southampton star Tyler Diblin. The Daily Telegraph yesterday said that they want £100 million. There are so many clubs interested in Tyler Diblin. I think Spurs had the opportunity to sign him at £55 million. Of course, that price tag has gone up hugely, and there are so many clubs around Europe interested in him as well. So I can't actually see that one getting done because it's a lot of money for a young player, and I think from the top of my head, 35 appearances for Southampton in the top flight, 4 assists, 2 goals. That is a lot of money. Yes, he might be a star for the future, but that is a lot of money for a player for the future. And I feel like we've got enough of them already, and we need players for the now. I haven't even spoken about the possible replacements if Postecoglou does go. And like I said, I could sit here for hours talking about the pros and the cons about whether Postecoglou should go out the door or not. I like Ange. I do feel like he needs to adapt in certain games at times, which is a little bit frustrating. But, he lost Harry Kane. As I say, I could talk about this for hours. Thomas Frank, Marco Silva, Andoni Iraola, 3 very, very good managers, 3 very capable managers. And as The Athletic wrote, and it was a very good article, by the way, they've all done really, really good jobs. Andoni Iraola has had a lot of injury problems this season. He has got Bournemouth to a good position, might even get into Europe this season. Fulham, Marco Silva, done a remarkable job in the few years that he has been there. He showed again, how to beat Spurs, a week or so ago. And Thomas Frank, what a great job he has done at Brentford. When Brentford came up to the Premier League, most football fans expected Brentford to go down. He has done a really, really good job, and they are never, ever an easy team to face in the Premier League. So all 3 managers have done really, really well in the Premier League. But I would say, and I say it again, is we've got to do things differently as a football club. I feel like we have gone round in circles in recent years, particularly since Pochettino has left the football club. 7 different managers, that is far too many. You cannot keep going through different managers. You need to do things differently at the football club. Things need to change, and for the better, because, I don't want to be sitting here in a year's time, 2 years' time, saying that we have then replaced Thomas Frank or Marco Silva or Andoni Iraola. It just feels like, it's the same old reports, it's the same old stories, it's the same outcomes, no trophies. The type of players that we're getting in, it feels like the same, and I hate it. It has to change at some point.